comes back to the line. A shot to score. Cam Neely on the power play, and it's 1-0 for Portland.
Pass cross ice. Hansen one-timer score!
A man who always likes to shoot some hockey. Put the puck down on the ice and slap it.
Shot! Hayden Hill, a massive save.
The Columbus Blue Jackets are pleased to select from the Western Hockey League's Portland Winterhawks center Ryan Johansson.
Centering feed, shot and score. Ty Ratty will win it for the Portland Winterhawks, and they advance to the second round of the playoffs.
Everybody's going to get game misconducts anyway, so Sauer's going to get his money's worth.
Are veteran officials. That doesn't mean they're going to do a good job.
The Portland Winterhawks are the first U.S. team to win the Memorial Cup.
Welcome into Pucklandia, a special post-game episode, which has been, a little tricky to coordinate, and that's why we haven't done it to this point. But pleased to be joined by co-host / guest, whatever you want to identify as, Josh Kreitzer with PNW Hockey Talk, who is on his way home from the rink right now, and it's been a pretty interesting first two games of the series against the Everett Silvertips. Wouldn't you say, Josh?
Yeah, I would. And again, appreciate you always having me on and making room for me. But it absolutely has been it's probably, when we talked with Kyle Tuzowski again tonight, back-to-back nights with him having 2 goals, and kind of he said it best, is kind of almost two near perfect games for Portland. Obviously some things that they want to clean up, but from the most part, when you score 14 and you only allow 3, you're going to do all right.
Was I out of line on Twitter, when he had 2 goals last night and then before he had 2 goals tonight, and I said that he has more goals than teeth? I mean, I meant that in a, what we do in hockey when we're, giving a guy a hard time. Like, that's within the realm, right? That's okay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it probably got lost in my timeline, so I don't know if I saw that one, but I don't know why that. I mean, he's enjoying talking with, he's missing a big gap there. So I don't know. It's Twitter. You can kind of say what you want, right?
And I feel like in hockey, like that's probably like the ultimate compliment. Like you want more goals than teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you have a full set that's like 32 and you want more goals than that.
I mean, I think if you said he had more teeth than goals, that's maybe more offensive.
Yeah, you don't want that.
You don't want that, right? It's the inverse, right? So,
but to factor into that, I mean, okay, I mentioned this tonight, at the game, in the stands, that, I believe it was, Bill Wilms told me on one of these shows, years ago, that if you're going to win 4 series, one of them has to be your talent, your best guys. One of them has to be your goaltender stood on his head. One of them has to be luck, and one of them has to be your depth. That, your third, fourth line guys outplayed the other guys. And definitely in the first 2 games of this series, we saw 4 goals from Tuzowski. You saw a goal from Zakreski. You saw a goal from Yaremko. You saw, we talked about this off air a little bit. The time we had there that, at the final horn on an Everett power play, you had Zakreski dropping down, blocking a shot for no good reason, but it's a thing that we praise. I mean, Everett has had a really hard time dealing with Portland's depth so far this series. I mean, kind of what, where do you want to take off with that as far as, the depth? I mean, I guess everybody's scoring is a lot of that for Portland, but I mean, I feel like their depth players have been a huge part of this series so far.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think from the Zakreski shot block, I was a fan of it. I looked over at Kurt, who is, who's been doing a good job of providing some additional insight and stuff as well for PNW Hockey Talk this round here, and last round with Victoria as well. So, but I looked at him and I was like, those are the good habits that coaches talk about, of regardless of the score and regardless of the situation in the game, that they're still going to compete and they're going to do whatever it takes. And when Kurt asked, Kyle Chizowski tonight about that play, he's like, if anything, it was also a message to Everett of, you're not even going to get a late goal on us. You're not even going to get a late shot on us. We're going to continue to play to the final horn. And, with Zakreski doing that it shows that he's willing to put himself in front of the team, or, put his body on the line for the benefit of the team. And yeah, obviously it's not going to impact, the final result, but, if you're Everett right now, you're kind of looking for whatever positives you can take, whatever momentum you can take from, these first 2 games in Portland. And if you get a late power play goal, maybe there's something that you can build off of and can be a rallying cry. But that's kind of my stance on the whole Zakreski situation there. But in terms of the depth piece, I really think that with how banged up Everett is, and that has to be kind of a key talking point in this series with no Austin Roost and no Teague Patton to start the series, and then to lose Jesse Heslop last night as well. That's basically 3 of their top 6 are missing. And, I don't know if Ben Hemmerling is playing at 100% right now. And, we've seen how Dennis Williams likes to, play his top guys. And 3 of those top guys that he would normally rely on in a lot of situations, they're not there. And they're being asked to have some of their younger guys step up into situations that they haven't experienced a whole lot. And I think you made a point about this on Twitter of just how different it is between how Portland manages their bench with Mike Johnson, getting these guys, different opportunities. So that way they are ready for the playoffs in case something were to happen. They have to be, thrown into a different situation. So, but Everett is, they're up against it right now. But from everything that Dennis Williams was saying the past 2 nights of, they're not going to give up, they're not going to quit, and they're prepared to, bring the battle on Monday for Game 3.
Josh, you brought up some points I wanted to get to, and that's great as far as the flow of the conversation. But the Silvertips, I think people don't know this. So we talked about it during the intermission tonight that this is the highest scoring Silvertips team that they've ever had. In the pushing 20 years they've been there, and it's just not there. I mean, they're hurt, they're in bad shape, and getting more banged up as time goes on, and the whole thing with Dennis Williams leaving to take greener pastures back in Ohio. I mean, it's so. It's kind of they're a weird situation to be in, and a very good hockey team, but in the Silvertips, but it's just not translating to play on the ice, and so a formidable opponent. I mean, a team that pushed Portland very hard for the the division this year, and man, it just does not look like that same Silvertips team that over the course of the season.
Yeah, and losing Austin Roost, that is, he's been really good against Portland. I don't have the numbers in front of me since I'm driving, but he's he's done a really good job, in all situations and in faceoffs. I think he's one of the leading faceoff men in the entire league. So they're missing a big element to that, which can lead to to puck possession and offensive zone starts, and Portland being able to clear the zone with faceoffs won. So I think that, that they lost their leader a little bit there. So I think that probably plays into it. But, Miettinen and Raymond just haven't quite been able to produce at the same level that they were in the regular season. And also I think, Vancouver, who they played in the first round, plays a very different style of game than the Winterhawks. And it's not like Everett doesn't know Portland. They played them 8 times in the regular season, but when you go from playing a series against Vancouver, who outside of Schmidt is team, to Portland, who might be one of the fastest teams in the Western League, it's a big adjustment. And then when you throw in these injuries on top of it, I just think that they're kind of facing an uphill battle right now. And we've seen a lot of teams throughout the year come into the VMC and struggle, and for Portland to put up crooked numbers on the board. So, they're not alone in that. I think at one point I think it's the Kelowna Rockets that had some sort of like support group that they had going on their admin had posted on Twitter for teams that had gotten beat by 10 goals or something like that, or had 10 goals scored against them. So, the Winterhawks they're an offensive juggernaut right now, and they're getting it from all different places. And when you're facing a team that is that talented, you sometimes play a little bit more defensively, which takes away from your ability to go on the offense. And when you're in the offensive zone, we heard this from James Patrick multiple times in the Victoria series. If you make one bad pass or you miss a shot and it goes wide and out the zone, Portland's flying the zone. And now they're doing what they do best, which is trade off the rush. So these teams are having to adjust the way they play offensively in order to be better defensively. But unfortunately for Everett right now, they're not really succeeding on either end.
Yeah. I mean, side note, you bring up, Kelowna's social team, and, shout out to them. They do a really good job. One of my favorite social teams in the league. And by team, I mean, Paige, because she kind of does it herself, but neither here nor there. But, it's, it's just the Silvertips are up against it. And, and Portland is deep, and we know that. I mean, we watch this team every day, and a club that, and so far they've been pretty fortunate injury-wise, at least during the playoffs. They had, they went through.
They had their stretch.
The goalie carousel, and I had Casey Bryan on to preview the series, and it was like I kind of just forgot all about that goalie carousel they went through, which is, it seems so long ago, but it really wasn't. But yeah, they've been fortunate, and if they can end this series, sooner than later, then that will, be beneficial as far as that goes. I mean, tonight we saw Carter Sutherland, take a couple of, end up in a couple of physical situations. The one I didn't quite catch what happened, but it, hobbled off the ice, and there was a fracas, and then the one where it looked like he got, RKO'd, in the like a wrestling move. In the in front of the goalie, and came out okay. So and then scored a goal after that. So he kind of had some revenge. I talked about that on the internet tonight. But it's if they can limit the series, which it seems crazy to say. I mean, it seemed like it was going to be a formidable opponent, like it was going to be two U.S. Division heavyweights going to battle in the series, and so far 2 games in, it's just been so lopsided. I mean, I certainly didn't expect that kind of thing. I mean, maybe if I'd known about the injuries ahead of time, but it's, it hasn't even been close.
Yeah, and, we keep going back to the injuries, but, and it's playoffs, so we're not going to get that information. Getting injuries out of, hockey coaches is hard enough as it is, right? Sometimes they're just calling them body injuries nowadays, but it's, you're not going to find out some of that information, so it makes it challenging sometimes to make these predictions. But, from Portland's standpoint, everything that they've done and all the quotes, if I could go back, that talks about, hey, what we're doing is about getting them prepared for the playoffs. And yeah, the regular season matters, but we're trying to build habits for playoffs. Ulster said it tonight when we were talking to him about how sometimes he feels that the team may not have been ready for a regular season game, but it was because they were more focused on how would we have handled this if this was playoffs, and that maybe changed the mindset of how they approached that regular season game. So I thought that was an interesting quote. Ulster is always really good about being brutally honest. I always appreciate that about him, but I think Portland has raised their game, and we've seen that at times this year where they just look unstoppable. We call them a wagon sometimes, and the way that they're able to cycle the puck, and that was one of my questions for Johnson tonight, was just, Portland's dangerous off the rush, but there's multiple instances in game 1 and game 2 where 5-on-5, it still looked like a power play, and they were, getting line change in while still maintaining possession of the puck. And so Portland is just kind of taking advantage of that. And, some of the depth of Everett, they've got a, 08 defenseman and a couple of 07s that are, being asked to play some big minutes for them. And it's causing more and more, I guess, challenges. And as the series goes along, that's turning this further into I think with where I want to go back to is just how Portland has been preparing for playoffs. And they've seen it, they're prepared for it, and now they're experiencing it. And as long as they kind of keep up the same mentality and the same approach, and they don't get overconfident and think that they can just walk their way into the Western Conference Final, I think they're going to be okay. And I think that's why another reason why they didn't mind the Zakreski shot block is because, that's an easy time to just go, okay, I'm just gonna take a play off here. And then one playoff becomes a whole shift, and then a shift becomes a period, and it just spirals. So that's kind of my perspective. And if I made some sort of roundabout there, as they sent me back the other direction of I'm trying to go. So sorry about being a little convoluted there. No,
I appreciate your time, and I know you're, in a delicate situation, and that's part of a show like this, and being post game and live and uncut and all that. But it's a really interesting situation as far as they've built to this point all year and tried to play 4 lines and depth and mix guys in and out and all, and you're seeing the results, and you're seeing, Everett has a reputation over the last few years of, riding their horses and playing their best guys. And then once something happens with that, and then a guy gets hurt or a couple guys, and then that really handcuffs you, because any other guys don't have the experience. And it's also a thing too where, Mike Johnson is here indefinitely, and Dennis Williams is not. Williams is leaving at the end of this playoff run, whenever that ends, and Mike Williams is invested in Diego Buttizzoni being good next year, and Zakreski being good next year, and Uremko progressing, and if you're a guy that's only here for this particular playoff run, then why would you be concerned about leaving the Silvertips in a good spot for next year and the year after? And that's a unique position that we're in as far as this particular playoff series that you don't get otherwise, and that most of the time you're there, you don't know. Hockey coaches, they're hired to get fired. They're never there forever, but it's very rare that you know exactly when your exit date is going to be, and so it's kind of but at the same time, I don't know if I think that Dennis Williams is coaching any differently than he ever has, because they've always rode the top 2 lines since he's been there. So it's, at least it has a reputation for it. Whether that's, justified or not, but, it's definitely no reason to change that now as far as, on the way out the door. It's kind of a weird deal, especially with the first pick and coming in next year for whoever gets that gig. But that's neither here nor there. That's probably more of a post-mortem on the Silvertips, which we're not quite there yet. They still have some fight in them, but I don't know. I guess they give you a lot of things to take off on there, Josh. Wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah, we saw it last year when these two teams met in the playoffs with how much Berezowski and Roost played, and Sutter, right? Like, those 3 played a whole lot of minutes, and so I don't think you're entirely off base there by any means. So, and a lot of times the old saying is the series isn't really a series until someone loses at home. Now, eventually Everett's going to have to win in Portland, at least once. But they get the next 3 games at home, and their fan base is going to be, behind them. You know, the Portland fans showed up over the course of Game 1 and Game 2 and really supported their team. And now it's Everett's turn to kind of be able to capitalize on some of the momentum that their faithful are going to be able to provide. And they're going to get, you know, kind of the matchups that they want now with having last change. And so it might be a way for Dennis Williams to get, you know, Hemmerling away from, you know, Alsher and Thompson if they need to, or, you know, kind of get whatever matchup it is that he's looking to try and obtain. It'll be an easier for him. But it still doesn't solve Portland's depth, and Portland's still going to, you know, it's still the same size ice rink. So they're still going to be faced with the same challenges. And, you know, I think as, you know, this first part of the schedule, I think really favors the Winterhawks with 3 games in 4 nights, with how banged up, you know, the Silvertips are, like we've mentioned a million times so far here. But then between games 3 and 4, we have the very rare 4 days off because of the building availability issues. And so, you know, after Game 1 on Monday, you know, Game 4 doesn't go off till Friday. And then Game 5 is in Everett. So, you know, because of the building issue with Portland. So, you know, it's the 2-3-2 matchup. And so that's why it was so important for the Winterhawks to hold serve at home, because as the series shifts, it, you know, you just don't know, right? The first 2 games is what it is, but Mike Johnson said it really well tonight of, you enjoy this for 10 minutes and then you put it behind you and you move on, you rest, recover, and you get ready to go for Game 3, and that score is 0-0. And they're not keeping an aggregate of the total score. There's not used in any tiebreakers like we were trying to figure out down the stretch with PG. There's no tiebreakers. None of it matters. So Portland is going to have to continue to keep their foot on the gas and keep going, and they're going to have to make sure that they play at least 2 really solid road games while they're there, because otherwise, you know, Everett can maybe start to get a little bit of life back into the series. And, you know, we saw, you know, Tyler Palmer a little bit, and I know now I'm going long-winded, but, you know, he got pulled in Game 1 of the Vancouver series, and then, you know, over the course of the next, you know, next 4 games, he gave up 3 goals, and, you know, Kurt was really good of finding that stat and sharing that out. So, you know, that's just another one of those things that you just don't take it for granted. And like you were saying with your Bill Williams interview, that a goalie needs to stand on his head, and we've seen Palmer, you know, shut out the Winterhawks in Everett, right? So now that was 2 very different situations, but in recent memory, the Winterhawks were shut out in Everett.
Well, and to your point, I mean, you know, down the stretch when the Winterhawks were fighting for, you know, Western Conference supremacy with Prince George, I mean, they kind of got goalied at that Climate Pledge game that we were both in attendance for, and
yep.
You know, and they kind of got goalied against you know, Tri-City after that. Yep. And so, you know, if they are to advance, and, you know, probably are, and if PG is advanced, and it kind of looks that way, I mean, that the home ice advantage there might come down to a couple games where Portland got goalied. And,
yep.
You know, and if you have a guy, to your point, if you have a guy like Tyler Palmer, I mean, he can very much steal a game at some point, and they're going to have a couple opportunities to do so. And, you know, side note, I mean, if you're, you know, if Portland fans that, you know, are looking to their Game 3, there's a watch party at Grains of Wrath in downtown Camas, which isn't a sponsor of this show, but it's a place that I've been to several times, and I like. And, you know, the watch parties are fun. And I don't suppose anybody's going to Everett on a Monday. If you are, like, you know, Godspeed, and I appreciate you. And then the Friday, Saturday games, or any of the games in Everett, I have a bet going with a personal bet with the Silvertips ticket office. And so if you follow my socials, I have a link there for a discount for Winterhawks fans to sit on the end that they shoot on twice and sit with, you know, other fans and all of that. So you know, hop on for that, and we'll see how that goes. And I figured for sure there was games 4 and 5 on Friday and Saturday, and now I'm not so sure that it's gonna the series is gonna go that far. But so my suggestion would be to go to Grains of Wrath on Monday and go to Everett on Friday and Saturday if there is a Saturday, and yeah, there's a discount for tickets out there. So just throwing that out there. But
yeah, it was really cool that you were able to do that and get a discount code for fans. That I saw that through your socials and and saw it through the fan page that you posted as well. So really cool that you were able to get that done.
Well, it's just kind of funny. I mean, I'll give the Silvertips credit. So historically, they've done that. So I mean, this is the 8th series between the two clubs, and in the past, they've reached out and said, "Hey, Portland fans, come on up." I mean, they got it. The rink is pushing 9,000 fans, and it's a beautiful building. And I mean, you've been there, any number of times.
Yep.
I suspect listeners of the show have been there, and so it's similar to our rink in that they have room. Like you can fit more people in there. You can almost always fit more people in there. So why not, right? And so they've done. I've been on a couple of fan buses. There was a Portland fan that had some sort of connection with a bus company, and we took a few buses up there. I want to say it was 2015 maybe. I was able, fortunate enough to see an entire series. As far as all of the games in the series, and when do you get to do that? I mean, home and road. I mean, it's pretty fortunate, to have that opportunity, and so and as far as being Friday, Saturday, and then Monday, and then Friday, Saturday. I mean, there was a few Everett fans in the rink tonight. I talked to a few of them. Thanked them for coming because that's cool. I mean, ultimately we're all pulling on the same rope. I mean, we're not, we're not. There's no reason to have animosity with anybody. I mean, unless you're in Kent, I suppose that's a little different story, right? But,
yeah.
But I mean, we're all fans, and any Silvertip fans that go to the trouble to come into the Glass Palace. I mean, I'm going to respect that, and vice versa. And it's a beautiful barn up there, and so yeah. So if you're going to make the trek up there, I can get you a deal on tickets, and again, I have a small bet on the line with their ticket office. So you're helping me out in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think, Josh? You about home? You about thinking about putting a wrap on this? You got a little more time?
Yeah, I've got probably time for maybe one or two more topics. Maybe one topic probably at this point. I don't know if there was anywhere else you wanted to go.
So there was, that was actually I do remember something I want to touch on. So you talked about earlier, this 5-on-5, looking like a power play. One thing I noticed in the game 1 on Friday night was. And there was a lot of talk about the officiating and too many calls and calls being soft and I get all that. I mean, I don't like to bitch about that kind of thing. I mean, there's plenty of. I mean, again, we talked about there's whole Facebook pages dedicated to bitching about WHL officiating, even though that's not ostensibly what the page is for. But and I will say that Dokerson was in the house both nights tonight. Or both games, this weekend, and as well as another guy that I'm not sure who he is, but as far as with the league, watching that kind of thing, and so whatever you thought about, whatever you, the listener, personally thought about the officiating, the WHL brass was in the house both nights watching these games. That being said, I mean, so Portland shorthanded 8 times in game 1, and
that's correct.
They looked like the team on the power play while they were shorthanded.
Yep.
Pretty much all night. Obviously you have, the, all-time shorthanded goals leader for this club, in recorded history in New End. But, I mean, the joke is always, unlike NFL, decline the penalty. But, I mean, they just... to me, that was the biggest barometer that I saw all weekend, was just the way that they played shorthanded and seemed dangerous the whole time. Like, it just didn't even matter. That was... I mean, at that point, I mean, it's going to be really hard for the Silvertips to recover. Just going off of that as a data point for me.
Yeah, when Portland goes 7 for 8 on the penalty kill with a shorthanded goal, and then 3 for 5 on the power play, you're going to win a lot of hockey games that way. What it does is it does kind of limit some of Portland's depth because you're not playing as many guys. Kurt does a great job of kind of keeping track of some of that, and shout out to him for the note that he had where I think Portland used 7 forwards and then all 6 defensemen throughout the night last night or on Friday night, on game 1. So they were still able to get a good number of their forwards going, but it's in a different capacity, and so it kind of changes how you manage the bench a little bit if you're Mike Johnson and Dennis Williams with who's getting minutes. But you're spot on in the fact that there was we were kind of calling it a power kill more than it was a penalty kill, right? Like Portland was just, they do such a good job of letting teams stick around on the perimeter for as long as they want, and then the moment the other team bobbles the puck for even a split second, that's when they pounce. And we saw Chizowski do it multiple times tonight. We saw Zakreski do it. Danielson is almost an expert at it. And, Newens with his speed, they look like a team that isn't afraid to kill a penalty. And then when you got guys like Alsher and Ryder Thompson back there who are blocking shots as well, it poses such a significant problem for other teams. And then Spunar made 2 just grade A saves tonight. And, he's still kind of looking a little bit uncomfortable maybe. I don't think we're back to the first part of the season, Spunar, but I don't think it's quite what we saw towards the end of the regular season. So I think he's coming along, but he made a couple of really good saves on the penalty kill tonight that, I think would have maybe changed the narrative a little bit if he doesn't get across with the blocker and if he doesn't kind of make that split save with his left pad. So he really kind of just also backstops them too. And, Alsher talked about it tonight, about how much trust they have in him and that he doesn't mind them kind of getting in the shooting lanes a little bit and blocking the shots because he knows that they're reliable in blocking the shots. Otherwise, you're kind of screening your own goalie sometimes. But there's also times where they know just kind of get out of the way and let, as Dennis Williams called it last night, just play catch with them. How many times tonight did we see, wrist shots or, maybe a kind of a half slap shot that went right to Spunar's glove for a whistle. So, the Winterhawks are doing a really good job on the penalty kill, and it's a big factor in the series.
I want to come back to something I thought about before we started this conversation as it really came up. But, the thing about Portland's depth that's really fascinating to me, and it's kind of been all year is, and I don't know you weren't here for, the Niederreiter and the Tyrati and Berici and some of these guys, Bjorkstrand, these guys that scored 60 goals or whatever. And they don't have that guy this year, but they have 6 of them that are almost as good, and it's such an interesting depth component that they have, even the guy they had that was on Team Canada and World Juniors, nobody knows who he is. He's got a Red Wings contract in his pocket, 1st-round pick, and Nate Danielson, and still, I don't think he's a household name. I don't think people really respect that, and so it's kind of, but at the same time, again, you got Nguyen scoring shorthanded goals and all that. It's a really interesting depth. It's a 95 Devils if they didn't play the trap and played pond hockey,
Right.
And it's such a different thing in that, when you have, Tyrati and Nick Patan and Leipzig and these stars, and they just don't have that. But you're in a lot of ways you're better off because you're talking about having matchups. The matchups you want in Everett here coming up for the Silvertips. Getting last change, but who do they want to shut down? Where do you even start?
Right.
You're kind of it's kind of a fool's errand in some ways, and that's a really unique element to this team that we've seen over the course of the year because obviously been the makeup of the same guys, but that's a thing that I've never really known how to quantify or really how to talk about, but it's not it's not what we've seen traditionally with these, high flying Winterhawks teams. As far as, it's like everybody's like really good, but they're like, it's kind of like, so my personal life. So at work, I don't have to go to the meetings, but I'm as high up as you can get without having to go to the meetings, which is like perfect. That's where you want to be. It's exactly where you want to be. Like I'm important, but I don't got to go to the meetings, right? And that's kind of where like all these forwards are, right? They're right there, but they're not stars. But you can't deal with them because of they're all so good in the depth. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm quantifying it well, but I mean, it's a really. I don't know if I've ever seen a junior team made up in that way with that kind of quality of firepower. But I mean, over the course of the season or a 7-game series, I mean, it really you can make some hay.
Yeah, and it poses a challenge because, like we talked about in the first round, it was Stefan who just every second shot was going in, and now Chizowski's got back-to-back games, and then you got Danielson, and then you've got these defensemen that are kind of in that same realm a little bit, and so it's just you're right, because if you throw everything that you have at slowing down the Clausen, Stefan, Davies line, which to Everett's credit, they've done a pretty good job, but they still gave up 14 goals, right? Like, it's just, and I think it's also it's a team mentality as opposed to we have a star and we're going to rely on the star to save us. And they're just been able to find a way to make it work. And, if both teams, if PG moves on and Portland moves on and neither series is over by any means, there's been plenty of 2-0 series comebacks before. But if there's that, well, PG's kind of in a similar way. They've got some really good guys. They've got a goalie that kind of came out of nowhere in Ravensburgen, and then you got Parasak, who's probably going to win Rookie of the Year, who had 100 points when nobody knew his name coming into the year. And Zach Funk has got, 60 goals or something, 59 goals or something like that, or 67 goals. I can't remember, but you're right. Then they've got Riley Heidt and Zemer, and they added, at the deadline without giving up a lot. And then Hudson Thornton picks up a contract. Like, they're kind of built in a similar way. They've got a couple of good top end players, but so, there's a couple teams that are kind of built that way this year as opposed to last year where there's kind of more of that higher end talent, I feel like, in the Western League. And now it's kind of more about these guys who are just really good junior players that may not be those household NHL names like you were mentioning before.
Well, I love your PG preview, but yeah, we got a long ways. We got a long ways to go.
Yeah,
but you did mention, Stefan, and that a player that's leading your club in scoring and couldn't stay out of the box.
Yeah.
And that was a real issue. They had three penalties in like a real short period of time. And, any other time in any other situation, if you're leading scorer, I mean, you argue is your best guy, can't stay out of the box. I mean, that's usually a problem. That's going to sink you,
Yep.
But it didn't, in that they had enough guys to pick him up and, not only kill the penalties, but to do the scoring outside of that. And so that's, I feel like, and then tonight it was O'Brien that could stay out of the box, but at the same time, yeah, they killed the penalties and they picked them up. And so it's kind of like, that's its own set of, adversity as far as like, anybody else, if their best guy takes 3 minors in the same game, like, you're probably sunk. I would think. Yep. I mean, statistically, I can't back that up, but I would think that would be a really tough situation to be in, and here they are, 6-0 through, halfway through the second round of the playoffs.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're spot on there.
All right, so you're thinking about putting a wrap on this, Josh? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm home now, and the dog's going to want to go out. He's going to want to get fed, and I'm going to want to eat something at some point here. Got a game recap to write for PNW Hockey Talk. So, it's already going to be a late night, so plenty of time to chat, and trying to work out if I'm going to make it up to Everett on Monday. I'm going to do the best I can to try and get up there, but we'll see. Regardless, we'll have coverage. I'll still be able to get quotes and stuff after the game, so we'll do what we can as far as coverage wise. But hopefully we're able to kind of see you at the rink.
You're looking at the Monday. I mean, a lot of. I feel like a lot of people think about the Friday, which is a lot more conducive to life. But you being dedicated like you are, you're thinking about the Monday. I really admire that.
Yeah, I am. Because from my standpoint, depending upon how long this goes, we're getting near to the point where there's not going to be any hockey till August, and so and this team, Portland right now they're playing well, and they feel like a special team, and wanting to be able to kind of provide coverage of that, and it's always easier to do it in person than relying on the feed, which a lot of people experience trouble on Friday night. So being there in person is always kind of beneficial, and again, being able to talk to players and coaches in person afterwards as opposed to over the phone is always desired. But we'll see. There's obviously logistical challenges with I'm see if I can find a ride up there, or I might come back Tuesday morning. We'll have to see. So haven't quite finalized all that stuff yet. Got a little bit more time to try and sort through that, but I'll for sure be up there on Friday, and we might even see the return. For longtime listeners of this show, will recognize the name of Brandon Rivers might be making a return from proverbial junior hockey retirement. So it sounds like he might be in the building on Friday. So looking forward to maybe seeing him, but I'll for sure be up there on Friday night. And then if there is a game 5 on Saturday, I'll be there for that for sure.
I have heard the same Brandon Rivers rumors. I was just reminiscing about the Hodges Heroes blog just tonight. So
okay, yeah.
The more things change, the more they say the same. But
100%.
Anyway, the listeners of the show, I'm sure we appreciate your dedication to your craft, and if you're not making the trip with Josh up to on the Monday, there's probably going to be room for you at the over at Grains of Wrath in downtown Camas, which, by the way, downtown Camas is underrated. I mean, it's kind of a cute little spot. There's there's a couple places around the corner there, across from the paper mill. I mean, it's an old school town, but they've done some nice things with it. I mean, I know it's not necessarily by everybody, but it's kind of a pocket of town. But I think they did pretty well with the first watch party they did, even though I didn't make it up there. But it's a nice place, and then we'll see what happens. And if you are going to Everett again, I've got you on a ticket discount. But anyway, well, we appreciate your time, Josh, and we'll look forward to reading your story when you get it wrote and posted.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you as always, Chad, and see you around the rink.